So you're 59 with $1.5 million saved. Can you afford to spend 10k a month throughout your retirement? This kind of situation is one I see very often in my day-to-day as a financial planner. So in this video, we're going to break down in depth if you could spend 10k a month throughout retirement with this size portfolio, but also the factors in play that we can tweak to improve the likelihood that this spending approach remains sustainable, that hopefully will help you dive a little deeper into your plans if you're in a similar situation. My name's George, I'm a financial planner, CPA, and owner of Seam Financial, my independent fee-only financial planning firm. So to get started, let's break down the situation in a little more detail. John and Amy are both 59 years old. They've worked hard and want to pursue a retirement as soon as possible, ideally this year. They also want to spend 10k a month as their combined household expenditure. They have a joint taxable investment account worth 150k, John has an IRA worth 700k, and Amy has an IRA worth 300k and a Roth IRA worth 350k. Both will receive Social Security at their full retirement age of 67 of 3.5k a month. They also own their home outright, which is worth 750k. Their initial question is simple. Does this current portfolio allow them to reliably spend 10k a month throughout retirement? Because right now they don't have clarity over whether this is a realistic expectation, and therefore don't feel like they can safely make the jump into officially retiring. Now, very basic calculations may suggest a certain withdrawal rate based on the total portfolio holdings of 1.5 million, plus the projected combined Social Security payment from age 67 onwards of 3.5k each, will give us a pretty good idea of how viable this 10k a month goal is. But here's what we also need to consider to really get a complete picture of the situation. First of all, Social Security timing matters. The 3.5k a month is based on the full retirement age of 67. This means that taking this early at age 62 would give us a lower monthly amount, and delaying to say age 70 would increase the amount. The decision of when to start taking Social Security also inherently impacts our other holdings, as the difference between the 10k monthly goal and the varying timing and amounts of Social Security payments will have to be topped up by withdrawing from our holdings. The longer we wait to start taking Social Security, the more pressure we put on our investments for these initial retirement years. The withdrawal method is also important. Withdrawing from the standard IRA account versus the Roth account versus the taxable investment accounts all have different tax implications that need to be carefully considered, both in terms of short-term tax impact and the effects on future tax planning opportunities. Next is the healthcare gap. Until Medicare kicks in at age 65, they would need to cover their own health insurance, meaning 6 years of costly health insurance payments that we also need to factor into things. We also need to take into account the likelihood of varying income needs throughout retirement. Although the 10k monthly goal is a great starting point, studies suggest that spending is often higher during early retirement due to things like more frequent vacations, before decreasing during mid-retirement and spiking again in late retirement due to potential long-term care costs. And finally, we need to consider the potential for market downturns. This would of course affect the value of their holdings, and we need to set that expectation and set an expectation as to the reliability and sustainability of the proposed withdrawal strategy, while ensuring that we're optimizing said strategy for tax efficiency at the same time. Now, this is of course a lot to consider, so let's take a look at our initial results from the financial modeling software, where we don't account for things like the uneven income requirements throughout the year and the other variables I just mentioned. So let's start here at the probability of success of the proposed plan. This is at 61%, and this is the calculated likelihood that this proposed strategy will work, taking into account a variety of positive and negative market conditions, and this strategy is based on them living to 90. Moving into the income sources of the proposed plan, we can see that very simply, withdrawals from our investments are being solely used from ages 59 to 67 before Social Security kicks in, as indicated by the blue line, from 67 onwards. This of course takes the pressure off of our withdrawal rate from these investment accounts. Now, the probability of success rate is a little concerning. In general, shooting for closer to 80% tends to give people the right amount of confidence in the plan. From there, we can set guardrails for when this percentage rating inevitably changes over time, particularly when it decreases when the market is down. These guardrails will answer the question of what we do and when we need to react based on the severity of these downturns, and if we need to revisit and adjust our drawdown amounts from these investment accounts. But as mentioned earlier, there is some work to do to make this plan a little more accurate before diving in to try and get us to that 80% probability of success rating. First, we need to get more specific about making sure that not only the average amount of expected spending is accurate, but also the timing of certain large payments that make up this total amount is also as accurate as possible by separating out and itemizing a few of those specific known costs. Let's start with vacations. John and Amy simply factored projected average vacation costs into their total monthly goal of 10K indefinitely. When we dug into it a little further, however, we discovered that they plan to take more frequent and expensive vacations between ages 59 to 67, totaling around 6K a year, compared to less frequent trips from 67 onwards, totaling just 3K a year. They also agreed that in all likelihood from age 80 onwards, they can't imagine they would be wanting to take any vacations abroad. So reflecting that into our planning software, you can see that the two separate annual vacation amounts are now separated as individual items in our financial plan. Because we've itemized these, we can pull out the monthly equivalent from their monthly expenditure goal, bringing us down to $9,250 a month. Our probability of success is now also at 71% due to us specifying that these amounts that were previously just averages applied to spending throughout retirement actually has 1, a clear point where the expense no longer is anticipated, and 2, a more accurate spread of the funds between ages 59 to 80 when they do expect to be going on vacations. Next, let's look at a really important aspect of more general spending in retirement to reflect the more statistically likely and natural spending patterns of retirees. Now, the default that you are often see in various softwares is inflation-adjusted spending. This just means that your initial spending goal of 10K a month is adjusted in line with average inflation rates every year, meaning that you'll achieve the same spending power as 10K in this year for each subsequent year. Now, the linked underlying assumption here is that your core spending habits will remain consistent throughout retirement. And anyone who's spent any time in the financial planning space will agree that this isn't how spending habits tend to play out. And this also isn't what studies tend to support. The more realistic result is what is often referred to as the spending smile, meaning you'll spend more during early retirement, less as time goes on, and a final spike upwards towards the end of retirement for end-of-life care and other end-of-life needs. So this option here will help reflect that more accurately to give us the smile curve expectation of spending costs throughout retirement. And this only affects general spending, not your set healthcare costs. And as you can see, we're now at 90% probability score. But we now need to factor in the aforementioned long-term care costs. Now, John and Amy already factored in their out-of-pocket and health insurance premiums into their monthly spending goals. But as you can imagine, we could also separate those out to be more accurate timing-wise. But what they didn't factor in at all is the expected long-term care costs for care towards the end of their life. So as you can see here, we've factored in the average long-term care costs of $75K each for the final 2 years of their plan, which has now pushed our probability of success down to around 80%. Now, there are numerous factors that we can continue to tweak here. Social security timing, further adjustments to spending itemization, a review of John and Amy's risk appetite to change our portfolio holdings for the potential of increased returns, ensuring other tax saving strategies are in place, such as Roth conversions and tax loss harvesting. The list goes on. But the takeaway in this, albeit fairly simple scenario, is yes, based on our scenario, John and Amy could well be able to spend 10K a month throughout their retirement. But more importantly, they now have clarity over the reasonableness and reliability of the plan. The right approach is going to look very different for everyone. As you can tell just from this short video, there are so many factors at play, and in almost all cases, these factors are also interlinked. An informed, optimized, and desirable plan can only be put together when you give real care to thoroughly understand all options and impacts of potential strategies. I hope this has helped you be in a better position to evaluate your retirement planning options. And if you're interested in having a free consultation with me to discuss any of your financial planning needs, please click the link in the description to schedule a no strings attached call. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.